This is going to be the first in a series of short videos, analysing whatever scientific aspects of the Halo universe appeal to me. Today I want to take a closer look at Covenant shielding, not wattage or power levels, but a very simple and pervasive aspect that I don't think most people consider or are aware of. And that aspect of Covenant shielding is the fact that Covenant ships must locally drop shields in order to fire weapons. The examples we are going to be looking at come from the Halo Fall of Reach novel and its adaptations. Halo First Strike, Halo Reach, the Shadow of Intent novella, and Halo Silent Storm. We have 7 sources to explore, so let's get started. We go to the greatest piece of foundational Halo lore, the Fall of Reach, and its mediocre adaptation. The comic and animation both corroborate the following example, even if they differ somewhat from the novel.
They have reflective shields.
True, John replied, but the ship is damaged. They may have had to lower or reduce shielding in order to conserve power, and if we have to, we can use one of our own warheads to punch a small hole in the barrier. He paused, then added, there's also a large hole in their hull. Their shield may not cover that space entirely. Dr. Halsey whispered, it's a tremendous risk. With respect, ma'am, it's a bigger risk to sit here and do nothing. After they finish with the Commonwealth, they'll come for us, and we'll have to fight them anyway. Better to strike first. She stared off into space, lost in thought. Finally, she sighed in resignation. Very well. Go. And blow the hell out of them. The Covenant vessel grew rapidly in his display. A burst from its engines, and it turned slightly. Traveling at 100 million kilometers an hour, even a minor course correction meant that he could miss by tens of thousands of kilometers. John carefully corrected his vector. The pulse laser on the side of the Covenant ship glowed, built up energy, until they were dazzling neon blue, then discharged. But not at him. John saw explosions in his peripheral vision. The Commonwealth had fired a salvo of her Archer missiles. Around him in the dark were puffballs of red-orange detonations, utterly silent. John's velocity now almost matched that of the ship. He eased toward the hull. 20 meters. 10. 5. And then the Covenant ship started to pull away from him. It was traveling too fast. He tapped his altitude thrusters and pointed himself perpendicular to the hull. The Covenant hull accelerated under him, but he was dropping closer. He stretched out his arms. The hull raced past his fingertips a meter away. John's fingers brushed against something. It felt semi-liquid. He could see his hands skimming a near-invisible, glassy, shimmering surface. The energy shield. Damn! Their shields were still up. He glanced to either side. The huge hole in their hull was nowhere in sight. He slid over the hull, unable to grab hold of it. No! He refused to accept that he had made it this far, only to fail now. A pulse laser flashed 100 meters away. His faceplate barely adjusted in time. The flash nearly blinded him. John blinked and then saw a silvery film rush back around the bulbous base of the laser turret. The shield dropped to let the laser fire? The laser started to build up charge again. He would have to act quickly. His timing had to be perfect. If he hit that turret before it fired, he'd bounce off. If he hit the turret as it fired, there wouldn't be much left of him. The turret glowed, intensely bright. John set his thrust harness on a maximum burn toward the laser, noting the rapidly dwindling fuel charge. He closed his eyes, saw the blinding flash through his lids, felt the heat on his face, then opened his eyes, just in time to crash and bounce into the hull. The hull plates were smooth, but had grooves and odd organic crenellations, perfect finger holds. The difference between his momentum and the ship's nearly pulled his arms out of their sockets. He gritted his teeth and tightened his grip. He had made it. John pulled himself along the hull toward the hole the Commonwealth's Mac round had punched in the ship. Only 2 other Spartans waited for him there. What took you so long? Sam's voice crackled over the comm channel.
Commonwealth to Dr. Halsey.
I'm here, Captain.
The Covenant ship is moving. They will be on us inside 10 minutes. I'm sorry, Doctor. It looks as if you're on your own.
Dr. Halsey, let us take a shot. We're the best possible option. Your only option. Blue team is ready, and you know it.
John was right, and Halsey either did know it, or at least knew better than to argue.
Godspeed, John.
I'm just saying,
You could have volunteered Red Team instead.
You want me to pull over? Let you out right here?
As Chief Mendes would say, it's a long walk home.
Look, you know I trust you and everything, but how are we supposed to take on a Covenant ship in a Pelican? Drown them in our blood?
I was thinking, the Commonwealth's Pelicans are carrying nukes.
Nukes won't even scratch them.
No, not from outside their ship.
That's right. We can't beat them with brute force, remember? Scalpels. Surgical precision. We're small enough they won't see us coming. I hope. Gear up.
Ship's on autopilot. Course can be tracked via our HUD.
You heard this plan? And we're still doing it.
I think it's a great plan. I seriously love this plan.
I'm on board. I love this plan.
I love it too.
All right, here we go.
John, if we miss...
We won't.
The turrets. The shields have to at least iris for them to fire.
We time this right and we're behind their shields.
We time it wrong, we're smoking.
Sam, Kelly, with me. Fred, Linda, take the other side. We'll rendezvous somewhere in the middle. On my mark. Mark! Go, go, go!
I'm not going to make it!
Everyone makes it.
In their first meeting with a Covenant ship, the Spartans perform a spontaneous act so daring, Halo Reach will shamelessly rip it off, and its conclusion, years later. They will board the Covenant ship once it's already been damaged. On his attempt to get aboard the vessel, John makes a rather pivotal discovery. The guns need to locally drop shields to fire, and they do so for long enough that John is able to get aboard. The sequel novel, Halo First Strike, not only backs up this notion, it also goes a step further and shows they must drop shields to release fighters as well.
So, we get close to the flagship, Harrison said and crossed his arms over his chest. Are we going nose to nose with a ship with 1,000 times our firepower? Or are you planning another flyby? Neither. The chief pointed to the flagship's fighter launch bay. That's our LZ. Pulaski squinted at the comparatively tiny opening in the belly of the flagship. That's a hell of a window to hit coming in this fast, but... She bit her lower lip, calculating. Technically possible in a longsword. They'll launch Seraph fighters to engage the Pelican and the longsword, the chief said. And to do that, they'll have to drop that section of their shields. We get in, neutralize the crew, and we have a ship with slipspace capability.
Meaning that if the Covenant aren't expedient in disembarking their fighters, or wary of returning vessels in the heat of combat, they may meet with an unfortunate accident. The vulnerability of lowering your shields to fire not only exposes your guns to enemy attacks, but even weapons of a lower yield that probably shouldn't be giving your ships much trouble. The 3-kilometer-long Ascendant Justice was captured, in part, due to the simplistic but brilliant use of a longsword's missile to effectively render the guns momentarily inoperable due to the debris cloud while the shields are down.
The Covenant fired. Energy blasts impacted on the debris and missed the Pelican. Who's ever piloting that Pelican knows their stuff, Cortana said. We owe them a favor. John fired the longsword's guns, and tiny silver dots punctuated the trailing Covenant cruiser shields. Let's settle that debt. You realize, Cortana said, that we really can't damage those Covenant ships. The cruiser slowed and turned toward them. We'll see about that. Get me a firing solution for the missiles. I want them to target their plasma turrets just before they fire. They have to drop a section of their shields for a fraction of a second. Working, Cortana replied. Without precise data, however, I'll have to base my calculations on several assumptions. a string of mathematics appeared on the weapons ops panel. "Give me fire control." John punched the auto override on the firing systems. "It's yours," he said. The Covenant cruiser's plasma turrets turned to track them as the ship came to bear. They warmed, and Cortana fired all the Longsword's ASGM-10 missiles. White vapor trails snaked toward the target. "Let's move," the chief said. The Longsword accelerated into the debris field, following the Pelican's path. The aft camera displayed the missiles racing to their target. Anti-missile laser fire stabbed through space, and 3 of the missiles exploded into red fireballs. The Covenant's plasma turret glowed white-hot, about to fire, when the last missile impacted. The explosion smeared across the hull. At first, the chief thought it had hit the shield, but then he saw that the explosion was inside the shimmering envelope of energy. The plasma turrets fired. Their energy was immediately absorbed into the cloud of dust and vapor around the ship. Dull red plasma ballooned inside the cruiser's shield, obscuring its sensors. The ship listed to port, momentarily blind. "That should keep them busy for a while," Cortana said.
This vulnerability has been capitalized on in the past, as I have mentioned several times before now in the Halo Reach video game.
Yes, driver, we'll crack those shields. Steady, Spartan. Hit her in the gut. Pick up the fire now, Spartan. We won't survive another hit. Aim for the glassing port. Aim for the glassing port.
Good guns, Spartan. All stations, brace for cast-off.
This is a glaring weakness if ships significantly weaker than the vessels themselves can take advantage of them. It's not just when they fight or disgorge fighters, it's even when they refuel. As Halo Silent Storm points out, they cannot refuel without cutting shields.
The original plan had called for John, Fred, and Kelly to simply park their Banshees in a hangar, then leave their Havocs in the cockpit and exit on foot. Now that their Banshees had been disabled, that wouldn't be possible. How will you bypass the energy shields? John hadn't actually worked out that part yet, but Avery Johnson had. Won't have to, he said. The skimmers are still retracting their collection cones. So, Linda said. John realized what Johnson was thinking. So it's pretty hard to skim gas with your energy shields up. He checked to make sure the mag clamp holding the Havoc to his back armor was secure, then reached for the canopy's manual release. If we can intercept before they secure the collection cones, we won't need to board. Piece of cake, Fred said. We just intercept an alien vessel traveling 25,000 kilometers an hour, slip through its fighter screen, land on the hull long enough to stick a thermonuclear device on it, and get clear before the device detonates. Technically, you don't need to get clear, Linda said, but I would miss your wisecracks, so do your best.
Meaning Covenant ships need to be especially wary for when they decide to drop their trousers. Our last example comes from the Shadow of Intent novella. I have chosen it to go last because the Shadow of Intent is tremendous, but it's spelled out pretty clearly.
But Urtas had no answer. All he knew was that the prelate's trap was closing, and he was running out of time to stop the jaws from snapping shut. "Shield status," he growled. "Both ships." "His no longer register on the scan," the weapons officer replied. "Ours are 60% forward, 20% lateral and aft, but falling fast. Optimal range in 15 seconds. Shadow of Intent had 7 heavy plasma cannons evenly spaced in a deep depression that ran port to starboard around its prow. The weapons could fire individually or combine their energy into a single devastating mass that would annihilate the smaller cruiser. But there was a catch. Urtas needed to lower Shadow of Intent's shields before he fired any of its plasma weapons. Otherwise, the shaped energy charges would detonate against the inner surface of the shield, wreaking havoc on his own ship instead of the prelate's. This was standard procedure, a necessary dropping of one's guard before mounting an assault. The prelate would know this, would have planned for this. But the half-jaw had no more time to ponder, and he made the only decision that made any sort of sense.
Covenant shields must be dropped in order to fire their weapons, otherwise the armaments will go off inside the shield bubble and be contained there. There's also an example of a Covenant ship whose shields were able to contain the blast of a nuclear warhead that went off inside the ship. So there you have it. Covenant ships may be shielded, and that technological aspect heavily carried them on the ground or in space during the Human Covenant War, but they are not shields as we would expect them to behave. Covenant ships that operate under these rules are vulnerable, so much so that some of the weakest caliber weaponry runs the risk of catastrophically compromising its weapon systems and integrity. Interestingly though, the elites don't seem to have this weakness of needing to drop the shields around the barrels of their guns in order to fire, as far as we know. Probably because the shields don't actually envelop the guns, and just the fingers on the trigger. That being said, elite shielding seems to possess another altogether different but significant weakness, and one we will explore at a later date. Thanks for watching.